Right, as we walk over this land bridge, we've got Knypersley Reservoir to the right and Serpentine Lake to the left. Today I'm heading to see Gawtons Well. It's a sacred grove. It's said to be one of the finest examples in England, and possibly the most mysterious place, and certainly one of the most atmospheric. It's said to have been used by the Druids, but it's of a debatable age. But it's surrounded by yew trees which were venerated by the ancient people. Also, the head of the Trent flows into the reservoir, and it's a project I've been thinking of doing for a few years now, following it from the source, which I'm going to visit today, all the way along to the Humber estuary. Visit all the historic sites on the way. Something I need to get done. That's it, go and fall in, you fool. Yeah, Knypersley Tower, or Warden's Tower as it's sometimes called. Built in 1828 by John Bateman of Knypersley Hall. It was intended as a gamekeeper's house and a folly. There's 3-storey octagonal towers built in red sandstone. It's been abandoned since 1990s. It's in poor state of repair, partly due to the presence of bats. And of course, with it having bats, it's protected. There was an options appraisal for the building. Apparently it's been completed, which makes recommendations for its future use. You ought to do something with it because it's a gorgeous building. You can't just leave it, surely. It's not helping the history of all the bats if it continues to crumble. Bureaucracy at work again, I guess. It's a circle which no one can escape, isn't it? Right, let's go to Gawtons Well. See if we can find it. Right, I guess it's going to be up here. You found it yet? Well, back down, it's not up here. Wandering around like a bloody idiot. I think it's over here. Keep following little trails and coming back again. There, look, there it is. We're on it. Hope you're leading me the right way, Marley. There it is, I recognise it from the pictures. Shit. This is atmospheric. There's a wall all around it. And these yew trees are not ancient. Not as ancient as some I've seen. But some of them look like phoenix growth, where one's grown out from the others. So the old stuff could have died back. There we go. It's resting for Ziggy. Come on. Now, was this place venerated by the Druids? Although the trees don't look that old, and secondly the presence of the nearby Warden's Tower, which is a Victorian folly, could indicate that this is probably an 18th century piece of antiquarianism. And this could further be supported by the presence of Gawtons Stone, which is just up from the spring, and some people think that is part of a folly. But we'll have a look at that later. Now, these yew trees could be sort of second generation like phoenix growth, which I've done a video about. It's where the outer growth dies off and the inner core keeps going, sort of like cloning itself. But possibly, I think it was already here when the Victorians landscaped the area with the tower and that, and this has influenced them to construct the other things. It just feels old. And this is a place named after the hermit who was kicked out of the house by the landowner because he caught the plague, and he came and lived here and cured himself. But very often landowners would they'd employ a hermit to add some romance to the estate. And this happened at Drew's Temple near Masham in Yorkshire. If this is the case or not, it doesn't really take anything away from the mystical atmosphere and air this place has. I think it has Dark Age origins or earlier. Now the area does have a paranormal past and a haunting present as well. Firstly, there was a servant who contracted the plague, the hermit who lived by the well. He's supposed to haunt it still. And then you've got Knypersley Pool close by, which is where the head of the River Trent flows into. It's supposed to be a place of fairy dancing people, nature spirits, and they've been seen dancing on a little island there. There's been a few reports of that. There's also been sightings of a hunchback man near the stone and the well, but he seems to mysteriously vanish on closer inspection. He's often seen wandering round the spring. Nobody's here now. Other ghostly goings on as a white lady of the lake who appears dressed all in white, like a white mist floating across the body of water. And she's said to be a young woman jilted by her lover, and sadly ended her life in these waters, heartbroken. But probably the most upsetting and disturbing are the reports of children's cries for help from the waters at night, said to be the victims of drownings at the reservoir. Some accidental, others a bit more nefarious of nature. That would be spooky. And finally, there are said to be malevolent spirits around this well, which are kept there by witches who use the area for dark magic. Evil talismans are said to be buried in a circle around the well, where carvings of the elements are seen in the surrounding trees, although a lot of these are more spiritual things left by visitors. I've seen people doing seances and ghost hunting here on YouTube, and it does seem a bit eerie. I don't know if I'll come here at night on my own. I didn't last night, I thought I'd wait till daylight. It's supposed to have a malevolent feeling about it. Somebody's been here, look at the fire. It's got an eerie feeling. I won't say malevolent. No, I won't come here at night on my own. Although the dogs are out. You on edge, Ziggy? Molly's not, he's rolling in the shit. But Ziggy looks a little bit on edge, don't you, Zig? Looks a bit pensive. Dogs pick up on things like that, don't they? Well, some. Morley hasn't. do feel a bit like you're being watched, I've got to admit. Oh, bit of a walk, but we found it. I'm panicking thinking it's going to be higher. Wow. What do you reckon? Neolithic, Druidic, or a Victorian folly? You could imagine people sheltering there, but not full-time living. And I haven't found any reports of archaeological research, digs and that done on it. Is that Molly? People do come and climb it as well. Not Everest though, is it? You like it in there, Marley? Oh, you're filthy, look at you. It does look like an ancient landscape. You've got the rocky outcrops either side, the River Trent flowing into, well, what's now a reservoir, but that wasn't there before. It could have been pools and stuff. I don't know. What does anybody else think? Could it be erratic? In the Ice Age? I don't know, I just don't know what to think of that. I'll do some more research. Now the Gawtons Stone has been regarded as a sacred healing stone, and it's been described as a Dolmen or megalithic stone monument. And it would have been known as a Druid cromlech in Victorian times, and it could weigh up to 60 tonnes. And there's also claims that it's, as I've mentioned, a folly, or it could be a natural erratic formation. It is reminiscent of a Cyclopean version of the Devil's Den in Wiltshire, but there are written references to it going back to the early 1600s, which is really before the buildings of follies became fashionable. And as far as I know, no records exist of landowners having built it, but there is a tower. And I've also read since visiting the place that it's unlikely to be a natural arrangement of stones, as like an erratic, as the capstone is a different type of rock to the base stones. As previously it was thought that a larger stone had toppled from a nearby outcrop. And according to Biddulph Museum, I read the excavation took place in the 1900s, which indicate burials took place at the site, which would make it ancient. And local people claim the stone has magical powers, and when touched it exudes an energy, a kind of magnetic field. So still none the wiser, but I think it's old and ancient man would have used it. Just my opinion there. Let me know in the comments what you think.
Well, Zig has just found.
It's an intriguing one.
Where is it, Zig? Wow. Well, the ancient people would love something like that, wouldn't they? I don't think I'm going to clamber up there.